Welcome to the third installment of Janice's Sip and Stitch. Today's Sip and Stitch is brought to you by Kinda Tasty, that's the name of the drink, and also by Adult Booty Slippers. That's what we are going to be making today. Ta-da! Also, I don't know if you noticed the lovely shirt today. This is my latest creation. I actually designed this and printed it myself. And one day you too can have a shirt just this nice. And also, if you follow that link up there, you can also download the pattern from my website at any point in time. If you touch that eye, you can see pretty much anything that you want to that's linked in this, including the link where you can buy this shirt. So today we're going to be making adult booty slippers. This is one of the free patterns that I've actually had around for quite some time. It's available on all my internet incarnations once again. You can find the pattern on iBooks. So if you get your music through iTunes, you can find this pattern there if you want to download it. You can also find this one on Barnes & Noble. Of course, I have it on my website and to download. And if you would prefer to just read it off of my blog, you can also go there to see that if you want to. If you're not into downloading for whatever reason, I don't know why you wouldn't be. It's a lot more convenient. But if you want to go to any of those other websites, you can download it directly from those. So what you're going to need today is the usual sort of things that we always need. Once again, we're going to need our size 5 needles. We also are going to be trying something a little bit different for a change. On this video, we're going to be using some double pointed needles as we're going to be knitting in the round. I know a lot of you are going to be thinking to yourself, well, I don't know how to knit in the round. Totally fine. By the end of this pattern, you're totally going to get it. So you need double pointed needles. And double pointed needles are exactly that. They are pointed on both ends. You're also going to need a needle so you can sew up your ends. So take your regular needles, and with these we're going to cast on 42 stitches. It doesn't matter what size that you're going to make this. It's going to be 42 stitches, whether it be the small size or the largest size. So we cast on 42 stitches. One of the good things about this pattern is that it's the same stitches over and over and over again, the same number of stitches. The only thing that differs is the number of rows depending on the size that you're making. And that's the only difference in this whole thing. The next 2 rows are what makes up your pattern. So now that we've cast on the 42 stitches, we are going to knit 3, purl 2, and knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, and knit 2, then you want to knit 14. So then we're going to purl 2 and knit 2 again. So we purl 2, knit 2, and then we're going to purl 2 again, and then we're going to knit the last 3 stitches. Giving that little end a good old yank because it always goes a little loose. Alright, so it's not looking like anything fancy right now, that's for sure. So I move on to the second row, and what we're going to do now is we're going to purl 3, knit 2, purl 2, knit 2 and purl 2 two more times. Now we're going to knit 12. Now we're going to purl 2 and knit 2 again. And then we're going to purl 2 and knit 2 two more times again. And then we're going to purl the last 3 stitches. So those 2 rows that we just did, that is what makes up the entire pattern for the slipper. So you're going to want to repeat those 2 rows for however many times you need to for the size of the slipper that you want to make. Your best bet is to download the pattern, and then you can decide what sized adult slipper you want to make, and it'll tell you how many times to repeat those 2 rows total. I'm going to show you in a minute how easy this pattern is based on what you're actually going to see being knitted as you go. You can tell exactly what stitches need to be knitted in and what stitches need to be purled in once you get going on this slipper. We are now the rows a little further into the pattern, and what you can see is we are now making the sole of the slipper right here, and these 2 pieces right here, those are the sides of the slipper. And it's really easy to see what stitch is now going to be going into what. I described this a little bit in the Netflix and Knit This scarf, but I guess it might be easier to do it again here. So anything that looks like these stitches, these are always knit stitches when you're looking at it on the right side. And anything that looks like that is going to be purl stitches on the right side. Okay? And this is a garter stitch. That is always a knit, whether you are on the right side or the wrong side. So depending on what size slipper you're making, how many times you repeat those 2 rows is going to be different. Could be for 26, 30, or 34 rows. It all depends on what size of slipper that you're going to be making. I'm feeling a little bit lazy, so I'm not making a complete slipper today. We're going to start the decreasing row because you're going to have more here than I'm doing, but I'm just doing a sample today, so there's going to be more stitches or more rows for you. It's going to be a lot thicker. So what we're going to do now, after you've repeated the number of rows that is required for your slipper, is that you're going to have the right side of your work facing you. So you're going to want to have that side facing you. So you have your knits and your purls all nice facing you like this way, and this end, your cast on end, your end of your yarn, is going to be facing you on this side. So your decreasing is actually really simple. You just decrease 1 stitch at each end. So what you're going to do is knit 2 together at the beginning, knit a stitch, and then you just purl in the purls, knits in the knits, down to the end of the last 2 stitches. And by this time you know where you should be purling and you know where you should be knitting. It's very easy to see where that's all going. Alright, so now we're down to those last 3 stitches. We're going to knit that stitch and knit the last 2 stitches together. Okay, so there you go. So you should now have 40 stitches on your needle altogether. Looks pretty much the same, can't really tell much of difference. And you have more slipper here. Okay, so your next row, instead of purling 3 on each end that we have been doing before, we're going to be purling 2. So we're going to purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2. All right, and then you're going to knit the 12 stitches for the sole of the foot. Okay, and then we're going to purl the 2 stitches and knit the 2, purl the 2, knit the 2, purl the 2, knit the 2, etc., etc., and so forth. Okay. So basically what you've done, instead of now having 3 stitches to either knit or purl on the end, we now have 2 stitches to knit and purl on the end. But all the other stitches remain exactly the same as they were before. So now we're going to start shaping the toe. Your slipper is going to look a lot more like this than what I have on here. I'm just doing this really quick because I want to just get my stuff done. But your slipper is going to be quite long now. It should look something like this. And now we're going to start shaping the toe. And in shaping the toe, we are trying to decrease the number of stitches at the end of the foot so it goes around the end of the toes. So there's a number of different stitches that we're going to do. We're going to knit 2 together in some places and purl 2 together in other places. So row 1 of the shaping of the toe, we're going to knit 2 together, and then we're going to purl 2 together, and those would be the 2 purl stitches that we were doing before. Knit 2 together, purl 2 together, knit 2 together, purl 2 together, knit 2 together. You're going to knit 2 together 8 times. One of those knit 2 togethers are for the knit 2 on the side of the foot. 6 of the knit 2 togethers are for the sole of the foot, and the last knit 2 together are for the knitted 2 stitches on the opposite side of the foot. Okay, and then we're going to purl 2 together, knit 2 together, purl 2 together, knit 2 together, purl 2 together, and knit 2 together. All right. So you're going to have a lot less stitches on here than you did before. You're going to have 20 stitches now on your needle altogether. I would double check just to make sure. The next row in your forming the toe starts with a purl, a knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, and then we're going to knit those 6 stitches that we've now decreased the sole down to. Purl the next stitch, knit the next one, purl the next one, knit, purl, knit, purl. All right. So we're starting to decrease down the number of stitches that we have. The third row of shaping the toe is as follows. We are going to knit that first stitch, and then we're going to knit 2 together 4 times. Then we're going to knit 1 and knit 2 together 5 times to the end of the row. So we are now, stitches all together. You can see how it's starting to pull together at the end, so it'll form around the toe a lot better than it was before. On the 4th row, we're going to purl 4. Then we're going to knit 3 for the sole. And we're going to purl 4 for the sides. All right, so you are done your slipper. Ta-da! So that's how many stitches you should have on the end of your slipper. You're going to want to cut your yarn, and you're going to want to leave a substantial amount of length to it, because that's the yarn that you're going to use to sew up your toe. So snip, and then you're going to draw your yarn through and pull it tight. After you draw your yarn through, you just pull it tight like that, and then you get what looks like, of course yours is going to be longer, but looks like kind of like an end of a toe. Pretty simple. So now that your slipper is looking like this, we are now going to form the back part of the heel of the slipper. So with the right side facing yourself, you're going to want to cast on, or pick up, you're going to want to pick up 14 stitches along this back here. Now what I always do, I always pick up a stitch in this line and a stitch in that line, and then 12 along the bottom. That's how I've always done it. That's why it's 14. So you want to pick up your 14 stitches. Little side note, when you're picking up your 14 stitches, once again, leave a long piece of yarn instead of a short one, because you can use that length of yarn to sew up the seam on the back of the slipper then when you're ready to do it. So now you just want to knit 4 across evenly for 4 rows. All right. So now we have our 4 rows that we are doing for our heel. See how nice and pretty that is? Ta-da! All that hard work deserves credit. Go team. All right. So now what we're wanting to do is we're wanting to make that heel flap look like the shape of a triangle. So to do that, you knit 2 together on each end. So to start the next row, the 5th row, we're going to knit 2 together, knit every stitch down to the last 2 stitches. and then we're going to knit those 2 stitches together. All right. Then we're going to knit 2 rows on those 12 stitches that we have. For the rest of making the heel, you're going to want to knit 2 stitches together at the beginning of the row. Knit all of the stitches down to the last 2 stitches. And you're going to knit those 2 stitches together. And then you're going to knit 2 rows. So when you get down to the last 4 stitches, all you're going to do is knit the last 2 stitches together twice. So you're going to knit 2 together and knit 2 together. And then you're going to knit across twice. Alright, now we're getting to the part where I know a lot of people start to think, oh geez, I don't know if I can do this. Oh yes, you can. Knitting in the round is not nearly as hard as people think it is. It really isn't. You just don't flip the work back and forth, that's all. So what you're going to do now is you're going to take your double pointed needle, one of your size 5 double pointed needles that you have, same size as the needles that you were using before. And you're just going to slip those 2 stitches off onto your double pointed needle. Remember when we did the decrease when we were making the slipper, when we went down from 3 stitches on the edge to the 2 stitches on the edge? What we're going to want to do now is we're going to want to pick up 17 stitches from the end to that little ball. You're going to feel it with your fingers there where you actually decreased. Even when you look at it, you're going to be able to see it, but you're going to feel it mostly. You're going to want it evenly spaced, 17 stitches along there. It's pretty much standard practice to say evenly spaced. Sometimes you're going to pick up a stitch in every stitch, or you're going to pick up a stitch in every other stitch. It's kind of a weird sort of combination. As long as you get your 17 stitches fairly even, that's probably the best that you're going to do. That's just what it is. It's knitting. Once again, knitting isn't an exact science. It's a lot of almosts and just abouts and close enoughs. And it still works out quite well. So now that we transferred those 2 stitches onto this needle, we're going to get another double pointed needle. Just trying to find my needles there. And you're going to knit those 2 stitches. So you just knit them like you would any other thing that you have ever knitted. Okay. So you want to pick up a stitch right on the edge as close as you can and knit and pick up a stitch. And you're going to keep going down the length of your slipper. And don't worry if you're not exactly right on that little knob bump part. It doesn't really matter because that is the toe part. You're going to sew that all together when you're putting your slipper together. Now some people find that this gets a little bit tricky. We're going to now pick up stitches along the other side of the slipper. Run your finger down the length of your slipper and you're going to feel that little knob again. And that's where you're going to want to start picking up your next stitches. Oops, see, even I kind of screw it up sometimes. All right, so that, and you're going to want to pull it fairly tight, snug, not like super tight, but just snug. So we have 1, 2 stitches. So that is all of your 36 stitches that you've picked up. Ooh, looks like quite impressive knitting, doesn't it? I would also recommend that you count all the number of stitches that are on all of your needles for a total number of stitches, just so you have 36 stitches. If you have more than 36, the knit 2 purl 2 pattern isn't going to work. So whatever number of stitches you have around your cuff, it has to be divisible by 4. So the hard part in knitting with double pointed needles and knitting in the round sometimes can be starting your next row when you first picked up stitches. So you want to just knit it like you would any other stitch. So you knit it and you want to, once again, make that stitch fairly snug so it's going to pull itself together with that last picked up stitch that you made before. That way you're not going to have a gap in your knitting when you start the cuff of the pattern. So we're going to knit 2, purl 2 all the way around. And you do it just like you would any other knitting. You're just going to slide it off and it's going to work perfectly well. It's pretty cool how that works. And when you get down to your last stitch, you just knit and you drop it, and then that's the needle that you're going to use to start knitting on your next needle. So you just keep knitting like you would any other time. So you start knitting and purling, knitting 2 and purling 2, just like you would if you were working on regular needles. Okay, and then you do your next stitches. And once again, you drop that one off your needle. And then there's your needle for the next go. And you use that needle to knit the rest of the stitches off the next needle. that was your very first go around of circular knitting. You can knit on double pointed needles. Told you it was easy. Okay, so we are going to want to knit a total of 10 rows of the knit 2 purl 2 around for the cuff of the slipper. If you want a slipper that has a longer cuff, you can easily do that. All you need to do is keep doing the knit 2s and purl 2s around for the length that you actually want. I know some people actually like a taller cuff to fit more like a sock, more further up their leg. I've actually made pairs of slippers for people who want to sleep in them, and they requested that the cuff be anywhere from 4 to 6 inches long to go up their leg, so the slippers will stay on when they're sleeping. Always an idea. Everything is always changeable. It's kind of neat how that works. Knitting is very good and customizable, and you can do really pretty much whatever you want. So keep knitting in the round, knit 2 purl 2 until you get it the length that you want. In the pattern I say 10 rows, but if you want more you can do that. If you want less you can do that too. Well, I'm not sure if this is lazy or what exactly this is. This might be a part lazy, might just be because I've decided that that's what I want, in a shorter cuff. So what I've now done is, I think I've done maybe 3 rows. I don't want a particularly long cuff on my slipper that I'm making, so I decided that I'm going to do short, and I'm even going to do less than 10 rows. I need a drink. I'm just cuffing, whatever, I'm getting another drink. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to knit around, and what that's going to do is it's going to cause the cuff to get a nice edge on it. That's a nice rounded edge that's automatically going to curl underneath of itself. I personally like the edge. I like it a lot. I like the edge of the guy who plays on the guitar, and I like the edge on my slippers. But anyway, yeah, that's what it does. Alright, so we are almost finished. All we have to do now is cast off the edge for our cuff. Through the wonders of modern television, somehow my drink got full again. Who knew that was even possible? Anyway, okay, I'm drinking it. Cast off. One of the things that you need to remember when you're making slippers with cuffs, you want to cast off loosely. You want to be able to stretch that cuff enough that it's easily going to go around the foot, especially around the part of the foot that is the heel and the top of the foot where your foot meets your leg. That is the widest part of your foot, and you need to keep your slipper so it's going to be able to stretch around that. I can't stress enough how important it is to cast off loosely when you are making a cuff. And when I mean loose, I mean you make your loops when you're casting off ridiculously large. Really. If you look at them and you're like, that looks too big, that's how big it needs to be. You want to make sure that they're good and loose so the natural elasticity that is created through making a ribbed pattern is going to be maintained. So it stretches big enough so it needs to get around the widest part, but still hugs when it needs to. So it will still hug around the ankle of somebody's leg. So when you're casting off with double pointed needles, it's exactly how you cast off any other time when you are knitting. Okay, so keep casting off till you're all done. Well, hello, Sir Meow's lot. If he didn't make an appearance, it would be wrong. You know that, right? You miss him. You would miss him. If he didn't somehow become involved in a video, we'd all be shocked and a little surprised. So we are now done casting off, and break your thread, or your yarn I should say. Pull it through, pull it tight. Apparently I've been knitting for quite some time because somebody decided to fall asleep. He hasn't even been here that long. I wish I could sleep like that. Thank you very much for watching my video. I'm glad that you decided to take the time to watch this all the way to the end. Not many people do. So don't forget to follow me on Facebook. I run all my own stuff, whether it be my Facebook page or my actual website. I'm the one who posts everything on there. I'm the one who does pretty much all of the work. So anyway, yeah, go on there. I actually really like interacting with everybody who decides that they want to make a comment, good, bad, or whatever. And trust me, there's been some bad stuff that I've responded to. I'm not one really to not engage, shall we say, even though I shouldn't. Yeah, so if you want to send me a message through my Facebook page, by all means, go right ahead. I'm totally fine with that. I read every comment that you make. Doesn't matter what you say, even if it's just tagging one of your friends, telling somebody about one of the patterns that I have, I actually read every single comment. I get notifications on my phone and I read every one of them. Happy drinking and keep on knitting. Oh, that tastes like at least 3 more tonight. I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. Fuck you, bitches. Done! Woo! Don't forget to buy this shirt. That's what I should say. Don't forget to buy my super cool, awesome shirt. Don't forget to buy this shirt. That's what all the cool chicks are wearing. That's what all the cool knitting chicks are wearing.